Is it- All right. I'm here with Daniel Stanzel, offensive coordinator for the Helsinki Roosters. Daniel, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on here, man. We're going to just kind of rapid fire through a couple of questions leading up to the season and see where it takes us. First question I have is you personally, talk about continuing with the Roosters. What is kind of your motivation for, coming back this season and saying, hey, let's give it another shot. Let's do this one more time.
Yeah, I think the Roosters are such a great organization that have built such a great culture. And I've been around this organization now for, I think, almost 5 or 6 seasons and going into my third season as an OC. Well, one of the main things they do so well here is the junior program. We have a lot of kids that I worked with 5 years ago that have now transitioned into the men's team. And once you notice as a coach yourself, once you kind of get involved and you're trying to help people get better and you can see their potential, it's really hard to not be part of that process.
Exactly.
I think when this big transformation happened, when a lot of people stepped away, retired, or coaching changes happened, we tried to build a new culture or redefine us, so to speak. And I think we have made some huge steps the last 2 years. I'm fully bought in, and kind of looking at our roster, that who's coming back, the coaching staff we have. For me, it was a no-brainer to be part of that organization again.
That's awesome, man. And that actually leads me. The next thing is, going into this season, I'm trying to get a little bit away from last year, but we have to, preseason. We got to talk a little bit about last year. You came on strong at the end of the season. Things started clicking. I'm 100% sure here on the podcast, we all had you favored to go to the Maple Bowl going into the playoffs because we're like, nobody wants to play the Roosters. It's crazy. Like, they're just playing too good right now. So I know going from that type of part of the season and then coming back this year, there's obviously going to be some changes. But what are a couple of things you think you guys are trying to improve on from last season so that you kind of start, as fast as well as you ended last year?
Yeah, man, I think going back to last year, and you coached as well. It's tough to start the way we did. That was not the best way to go into the season. I think that's the biggest improvement we have to make this year. Just I don't know if it has to be preseason games or certain things we have to do different, but we have to find our identity as quick as we can. But going back to last year too, the fact that we did what we were able to do as a team kind of shows also the mental toughness of some of the guys. I mean, there's guys that sacrifice their time, their bodies, their commitment. You have other friends outside of football like enjoying their summer as like we are sitting there being 0-4 and just like, what the hell are we going to do? So I think we learned a lot from that. And I think all of us that are still with the team that were part of that saw, okay, this is the ingredient we might need to put in like early on. All right. And I mean, definitely I learned a lot from last year as well. So I think there is taking everything that we went through last year, the good and the bad, trying to like package that and, kind of have that already like ready when we go into the season. I think, you constantly learn and constantly adjust and making certain adjustments. And we have moved some pieces around. We have obviously got a few new players on board. We just try to find our identity as early as we can so we don't have to do it like midway through the season like last time.
Makes sense. So, next question I have for you is let's get a little bit into the personnel that you have this upcoming season. What are some guys or some names especially on the offensive side that, we should probably be on the lookout for this season from the Roosters?
So I think, do you want to go? I'm going to go finish first,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
there's a few guys that you guys know about, and I think the league started to see it a little bit last year. Guys like Santo Vekomäki, who had his breakout year last year, who's man, he's put in even more work this offseason. So it's truly exciting to like see what the final result will be come game game day. Lassi Pajarinen, he came back late last year because of an injury. I know there's 3 Pajarinen, but I think he's the chosen one. And he has a full healthy offseason. He's the one that also playing with the national team now. So, and of course, we can't forget about our quarterback. I mean, you guys know him. I've known him since he's a kid. I'm so excited to have him back. I can't tell you, it was truly, phenomenal to kind of watch how he has grown as a quarterback in person last year. I mean, you saw the Steelers. There was a lot of stuff that happened there, on and off the field, and we basically witnessed Ambro growing up right in front of our eyes. So I think that gives me a lot of excitement, and kind of coming back to our point about finding an identity. Let's not forget, Ambro has now been with us for months. So I feel like we've had a really good offseason. Him and actually our backup quarterback as well, Jere Siloma, they have had a tremendous offseason taking charge of the offense. So I think there's 3 names for you that I'm very excited about, the coaching staff is excited about, and household names that I think can even make an even bigger step this season. And of course, when it comes to imports, I've never had an import running back, and getting a guy like Ethan, who I don't know if listeners understand this, but he basically is like the Heisman Trophy winner of Division 3. Like that's the real deal, and having communication with him, and he's a student of the game. I can't wait what that's going to look like. And, then we also get Bryce, a receiver that has tremendous speed and, has had a few camps as well on the professional level. I think both of those guys, talk about weapons, getting your young QB some weapons. Both those 2 guys, we had, a great process during the offseason already with them. They're arriving here soon. So, man, I wish we could start next week. That's how excited I am.
Oh, wow. That's great. What about the offensive line? I mean, this isn't actually one of my questions, but now you have me thinking about it. You guys coming back with the same group, or are there going to be any changes there?
So we are coming back with the same group.
Okay.
We have, which is, I think, we kind of forget about those guys because they're just like such a steady thing for us.
Yeah.
But super excited about that O-line, obviously, because now a guy like Aki Aho, who was an all-star last year, but still, being his 4th year with us, now kind of being also in a leadership role. Sampa Vekomäki, I mean, you know him. I don't have to kind of talk about him. Alex Inetti, I think, was kind of like the identity we had of kind of having this he was a destroyer out there on the field. Mikko Toiminen is our center, who, as you know, has a sumo wrestling. So there's all this veteran. and of course, Victor Asklöv is the right tackle that is going to jump in this year. He played basically, I think, 80% of our games last year. People kind of forget about that. So those guys have played with each other for the last year. There's a good communication. They've made another step. We have, I don't know if you know Patrick Azen, but he's our O-line coach. He originally comes from the D-line, has done a few things with scouting. He just was at that camp in Germany where Justin Fields and Christian Wilkins were at as well. He's an engineer, is analytic guy. So not only do we try to kind of keep that O-line strong and kind of keep it very constant, we also bring in new pieces. Patrick has been there last year, and his kind of approach from the defensive side, also analytic side, has also given them something new to work with. So, man, yeah, of course, I think for the fans, I talk about the playmakers first, but from for us football nerds, the O-line, man, unbelievable.
That's awesome. That's one thing I'm excited about for the Roosters specifically. Is we said it on the podcast last year, and you alluded to it earlier. There's kind of a change of the guard, and we said, I remember last year we said at the beginning, we don't even know who half these kids are. Who are these people? And now it's really good to see. Last year, you guys had like I said before, at the end of the season, just an explosion and people coming together. And now we're kind of figuring out who the Roosters are going into this new era. So that's really exciting. And that leads me to my next question. The 2024 Maple League season, they changed the import rules a little bit, but not enough to really change anything in my opinion. But again, this season, a lot of teams outside of the Roosters and Butchers, probably the only two teams I think where the main core really stayed, both coaching staff and players. But outside of that, everything's different. Everyone has new players, everyone has new coaches. Like there's a lot of change in the Maple League. So what's been told to me is, it's anybody's ball game this year. For you personally, Daniel, what are you most excited about in this 2024 Maple League season? What are you most excited to see, or one aspect of the league?
I think with any change, there's going to be some things that are exciting, some things that people have to adjust to. By bringing in more A players, the level of football must increase. Like that's just the nature of things, right? And so, there's a lot of guys that people come to see. There's players on certain teams that people go to come watch. So I think there will be more of that. I think it will give you guys a lot more, highlights to talk about. From an offensive perspective, I feel like last year, let's take the Butchers for example. They had 2 imports on defense, and I think Seinäjoki did the same. So we have kind of seen that, right? Like we have seen 2 A players on the field and had to prepare for it, which is tough. But now the fact that you have to do this on both sides, I think will put a lot of stress on some teams, having a good game plan ready, kind of preparing, like doing their scouting the right way. Because, I mean, we've seen some of those talents out there, and imagine you just, hit the jackpot and you get 4 of those. Like that's the dream, right? Like that's what every team is aiming for. So, so I think I'm just very excited about, on one hand, like seeing how we obviously developed and giving us basically another opportunity to go, have another in-person interview with you during the Maple Bowl week. Like that's the dream, right? So for us to kind of go into that season, and then kind of the level of play, I think generally speaking, Finland has done tremendous work in developing players. There's a reason why so many Finnish kids go all over Europe or even the US and Canada. So, but I guess, and this actually, I had one question ready for you, because I was told that you had a little Maple Bowl, like a 2024 prediction. Also looking, of course, yeah, of course, like I heard. So looking at, like the league changes and everything, when you do those kind of things, I guess the team you kind of praise, usually like all the players, like, yeah, like you finally got us, you got it right. How is the feedback when you predict the season like that early in the stage? Is it more negative, positive? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
I would say my situation is a little different than most people's situation, because I think I have a pretty good handle on. No, I don't have a pretty good handle. I think the football community has a pretty good handle on where I stand most of the time. I make my predictions and I stand behind them, but also I kind of play devil's advocate more than anything. Even last year, there was times all last year I called the Portvu Butchers the Dallas Cowboys. That's, I mean, I said it in a good and bad way, but mostly with the negative connotations they couldn't win the big one, and then they win the championship. And being on the media side, there's nothing that can actually make me look bad. At the end of the day, I can always say, hey, I'm glad you guys won, or hey, I will never be upset that someone lost. But I think when I make the predictions, the thing is, everyone knows that the prediction I make is based off what the information I have at the time. I don't make predictions based off of what I think will happen or how I can project something. The information is given to me, and if this is what I think, then this is what I think, and I stay with that. But also at the same time, we do a midsummer predictions where we're like, oh, let's change this whole thing up. And even last year, we changed the whole thing up in the midsummer. We're like, oh, because I think last year was was my worst prediction because I picked the Steelers to win the entire league. And then in midsummer, I think I picked the Steelers to come in last because we were like, it's not the same team. And that's just kind of where we are with it is we make these predictions. People have to understand they're going to change as soon as week 1 happens. Like that, it is what it is. And I think Finland, we're in a good spot. People understand, people that actually follow the podcast and keep up with us, they understand that that's usually what we do is we make predictions and then we kind of have to adjust once games happen. You said it earlier, and actually I said it earlier as well. Every year the teams change. It's not like the NFL and college, well, old college before NIL and transfer portal, where you can actually use last year to actually, guesstimate what's going to happen. In the Maple League, most teams change imports every year. Half the teams change coaches. A lot of Finnish players actually change teams every year. Even this year, my predictions is based on the fact that what I've said earlier. There's 2 teams in the Maple League that have brought back similar teams. Those are the 2 teams I would put up to contention for the Maple Bowl. And out of respect for one team having won it last year and then bringing back pretty much the same team, that's my pick. Yeah. And that makes logical sense. And I don't think anyone's really upset at that pick, but also depending on how the season goes, I do have more Roosters hats than anything. So, it is what it is. But I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of teams that do it with their team, with their players. I've always been a big fan of both the Roosters, Butchers, and Crocodiles, even though they don't do it nearly as much with their players as they used to. But now that they actually have the youth that they need, those are 3 teams that I look at all the time as I would like to see them with it, And last year it just happened to be the Butchers. But like I said, last year we had the Roosters picked. A lot of us were going with the Roosters to win it all. I think you played the Butchers. I'm pretty sure I picked the Roosters to beat the Butchers in the semis. That's how I thought it was going to go out. But it is what it is. But that's the thought process is make the pick, have no apologies. And once we see what happens, we just try to go from there.
Makes sense.
You're the first person to ask me a question on these interviews. That's pretty cool.
I'm curious.
Yeah, but Daniel, again, thanks for coming on the podcast, man, and good luck to you and the Roosters this upcoming season.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me and reaching out if there's anything else.